Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome back to my Getting Started in Beekeeping series of videos for 2017. Today I'm back up at the allotment apiary to take another look on our weekly inspections at the nucleus colony that we installed in the full-size hive. If you haven't yet caught up with the previous videos, take a look at the playlist, and there's several videos of us moving the bees up here, preparing the site and that kind of thing. And today is just a straightforward inspection to see how far the bees have drawn the comb and whether we need to top up the feeder, that kind of thing. Last week somebody commented that I needed to take a look on YouTube at some instructional videos on how to light my smoker because the smoker had just about gone out while I was inspecting. And all joking aside, it's a valid point. You really do need to make sure that you get your smoker well lit and that it's going to last for as long as your inspections last for. Because it was just a small nucleus colony, I lit one of the small lighting sticks that you can obtain from bee equipment on the internet, and I thought that just one of those sticks was going to last long enough, but unfortunately it went out. But the bees were fine and they didn't get out of control, so it's just important that you remember to make sure your smoker is well lit. So I'm now going to light my smoker, make sure that's well lit, get my suit on. In fact, today's quite a nice warm day, so I'm just going to pop my jacket on, grab my hive tool, and we'll get stuck in and see how the bees are doing. So these are the lighter sticks that I was sent by bee equipment. They're called Quick Start Fire Starters, and they're just small sticks that I assume are impregnated with something. You just light them and they're like mini fire lighters. But if you use maybe, well, certainly not one, but if you use maybe 4 or 5, it's going to be enough to see you through a quick inspection. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to light 4 or 5 of these, and then we'll pop them in the smoker, and hopefully that will see us through to the end of today's inspection. And finally, just to confirm, the smoker is smoking. Okay, so I've puffed a small amount of smoke across the entrance to let the bees know I'm around. So I topped up the feeder just a couple of days ago, and the bees are feeding quite nicely on the sugar syrup. You can see there's a little bit of mould starting to appear, so I'll have to wash that out. But otherwise the bees are taking the syrup down really well. And I also placed a small piece of plastic cut from a small food container and just covered up the second hole that was in there, because when I took the roof off there were lots of bees inside the roof, regardless of the fact that the roof was down on it. So I just wanted to cover that up. This is called a J tool because of the shape of it, and this one comes from Bee Equipment, which is the online beekeeping suppliers, and this is one that they've had made specifically for them. It's got a sharper point to the J, but also the edge on the blade at the bottom is a lot sharper than most of the J tools I've had previously, and this is an excellent tool. So my thanks to Bee Equipment for supplying me with this this new beekeeping hive tool. If you're interested in taking a look at it, I'll put some links down in the description below. So let's take the feeder off. Just ease that up and then lift it off and into the roof. And now we can take off the crime board. So what you can see here is the 5 frames from the nucleus colony, and then 3 frames either side, which are the frames that we've added to the full-size hive, and that gives us 11 frames in total. We still have frames of foundation that the bees are working on, but they are now starting to work on the outer frames and drawing the foundation, which is good news. So when you take out a frame, place the first frame to one side, and then the second frame, leave it tight against the edge of the brood box nearest to where you're inspecting, and then inspect away from yourself. This gives you a nice gap so that you can take out the next frame nice and gently without disturbing the bees too much, and lift it out nice and slowly and in a controlled way so that you can see what's going on and that you don't disturb the bees excessively. So again, you can see here that we've got the bees on the comb, and they're storing the sugar syrup here, and I would imagine that they're bringing in some nectar as well because it's quite warm. So now we're into frame number 1 of our nucleus colony, and I'm using the Hive tool just to act as a pivot to pull the frame away from the number 2 frame. Slide it out nice and gently, and there we've got a nice amount of brood. Let's see if we can just hold it so that you can see. So we've got a nice amount of brood here, and then in the top corners we've got honey stores, nectar stores and sugar syrup that they're storing, and the same on the reverse side. And on the reverse side we've got eggs and open brood. And again, when you replace the frame, replace it close to the frames that you've already inspected, and that maintains the gap in between the frames so that you can then go on to inspect the rest of the frames without crushing or rolling bees. Again, use the Hive tool to pivot the frame away from the next frame, so that's pivoting number 2 away from number 3, and then just pinch the frame at the side and gently lift the frame out of the brood box. So on this frame we've got a mixture of emerging brood, we have young larvae, and we also have some eggs. So let's see if we can show you that close up. I'll just check the other side of the frame, and the bees are nice and calm on the comb. They're not racing around, so these are nice calm bees. Perfect for this location because we are surrounded by other allotment holders who are up tending their gardens, and we don't want to have bees that are going to cause them too many problems. So what I'll do is I'll shake the bees off this frame, and then we'll set it up to see if we can focus in on some of the cells. Okay, so what we're looking at here is some open brood. It's a small patch of open brood of varying ages, and hopefully you can see that the larvae is in the bottom of the cells. They're a nice pearly white colour, and they're in a segmented C shape, which is the exact shape that you want for healthy brood. So I'm just going to drop this frame back into the hive now and get it into the brood box, and then we can move on with the next frame. Again, we use the Hive tool to drop in between the frames and then use it as a pivot to open up the frames. And again on this side, gently opening the frames. Make sure that you use your smoker when you need to, just to move some of the bees away from the side of the frames, and then gently draw the frame out And again, a nice area of brood. A lot of it has emerged since the last time that we looked, and they're all looking really good and healthy. Again, hive tool in and open the frames and then gently out. And when you lift them out, you can usually feel the weight of the frame, so you'll know whether or not you've got lots of stores in it or whether it's really light and perhaps the queen has just laid eggs in the frame. We don't necessarily need to see the queen each time we inspect, but it's always nice when you do spot her. The queen in this colony is unmarked still, so that's something that we'll do in the coming weeks. But again, a nice frame. We've got some younger bees on this comb, so if I can point out some of the younger bees, they look slightly fluffy compared to the older bees. So there's lots of young bees on this comb, which is absolutely fine and just what we want. So we'll pop those back in place, and then finally frame number 5. And you'll recall this is the frame that has the foundation that wasn't attached properly. So we're going to be replacing this frame, and I'll show you how we start to do that today. So we'll take the frame out, and you can see that there's lots of brood there. So we don't want to just remove this frame and destroy it, because we've got lots and lots of brood on both sides. If I turn it round so that you can see it, you can see on that side again lots of brood. So we're going to position this more towards the outside of the hive, and the way we do that is by taking the next frame along and moving that frame forward, and then replacing frame number 5 into that position there. Our next job is to take a look at this frame, because we've not yet looked at this one. And the bees are drawing this one really well. They've left a space around this area that the queen can now move into and lay eggs. And then we've got sugar syrup and nectar being placed around the top. You might notice some drones here. We've got 2 drones, one here surrounded by workers, and there's another drone at the top here, and you can see that they are much larger than the workers. Unmistakable. They have this fat abdomen and also great big eyes. Okay, so we'll pop this frame back in here, and then we can move frame number 5 across and just slide it gently against the new number 5, and we've got just one more frame that the bees are working on. So we'll just have a quick look at this, and here you can see that the bees are just starting to work on the wax foundation on the inner face, and then we'll pop that back in. And now we're going to close them all up. So rather than move the frames one at a time, we move them all together. So we put the hive tool into the edge of the hive body at this side and just lean forward, and the same this side, and just move them gently forwards until we have a big enough space in this edge to insert the frame that we took out first of all. and then we can do the same procedure. Slide your hive tool down the side, use a little bit of smoke just to ease the bees out of the way, and then push the frames so that they are tight against the edge of the hive body on that side. And then all that remains is to pop the crown board back on, and if you put it on at an angle and just gently lower it, it will move the bees away from the top of the brood box without crushing them. And then finally the feeder can go back on, and there's a hole underneath the feeder so that the bees can quite easily come up into it without being crushed underneath it. And then finally we can pop the roof back on. So I've put the feeder back on and topped that up with sugar syrup, and the bees are now good for another week before we inspect again. So I think it's important to say that if you keep that sugar syrup going into them, it gives them plenty of stores in order to be able to draw that wax foundation out. And I'm going to continue feeding until all of the frames have been drawn and they've got a full complement of brood frames. Well, I hope you found that interesting and helpful. For all of you beginner beekeepers out there, please do leave some comments down in the section below, and I do try to get to every question or comment that's left. Don't forget, we've got our Facebook group, which is Stuart's Beekeeping Basics, if you'd like to join in and ask any questions that you've got in that particular community. And we've also got our Twitter and Instagram feeds. And don't forget, you can catch up on all the other videos that we've got in our various playlists, and you can see those on a weekly basis. We release 3 videos each week, one on a Sunday, this particular video on a Wednesday, and then again our Maysmore Apiaries Polyhives videos are coming out on a Friday. You can probably tell the smoker is still well alight. And also, we release our videos as soon as we can following post-production on our Patron site, and that's where you can help support us in producing more of these videos. I'll put all the information in the description below, but for now, thanks for watching.